If we could, Mr. Russell, would you give our invocation?
Sure. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord God, Lord, we thank you for this day. We thank you for all the many ways you bless us. Lord God, we, as we always and often do, Lord God, we just pray for your wisdom, your guidance, and your direction. Lord God, as we undertake the business of the ODC and of the city of Odessa. And Lord, we just pray a blessing on our city. Lord God, that as a community, we would be focused primarily upon you and upon the things that need to be done to further and better our community. And we just pray that you give us the wisdom and guidance to do those things. So again, Lord, we just thank you for this beautiful day. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, sir. Would you stand with me for the pledges?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Texas.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you. Right. Has everyone had an opportunity to take a look at the minutes from the March 20th meeting? And do we have any changes?
Chris, there's one real minor typo on the second page, that the second paragraph, where there's just it's misspelling. It's a lot. Is one word, and it should be two different words. But other than that, I don't see anything, and I would make a motion to approve as corrected.
Excellent. Any other changes, suggestions? Okay, did you get a lot, Miss Kathy? Wonderful. So I have a motion to accept the minutes as printed. Can I have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Hearing none, motion carries. Contractors' reports. First on the plank, Mr. Mansky, Economic Development.
Good afternoon. Why don't y'all move me to the last? Is this on? You can hear me. So you will find my report, or excuse me, Economic Development's report on page, after the minutes there. Doesn't have a page number. Like typical, we start out with our projects we're working on. These are all stuff that we've reduced the list of projects that we've had some activity in probably the last 30 to 60 days. Used to be, it was about 5 pages long, and there were some things that have been hanging out there for a long time. We don't do that anymore. I'm not gonna go through each of them, but you will see Kingmaker, Triple S, Molecule. I will mention on Lone Star Lithium, they are coming in for another site visit. We have confirmed the date. It is towards the end of April, and I will get with y'all on further details for that as we put that meeting together. They'll be here for about a day and a half, and we're actually proposing some new land options to them. One of the projects, Nacero, y'all had asked for Nacero to come and give an update, and Hal is here today. He'll be later on in the agenda, so he will address the board and let you know what they're up to. Moving further in the report, you will find after the projects, you will find some of our visits, BR&E visits are listed there. And then after that, you get into our partnership stuff. By the way, we did have a partnership meeting this quarter. We missed you, Mr. Crow. I understand you were on a golf course.
Yes, sir.
But it was important because you were supporting your daughter, so that's what you were playing. After that, you'll find economic indicators. And then our social media, how many new likes and followers and things of that. It's still growing. Like I always remind you, I hope you're all followers on all of our deals. And that will be followed by the Economic Development Financial Report as far as our contract is concerned. And we have all that with any questions you may want to ask of that. A couple of things I'll mention with follow-up on, we are having some meetings on workforce that are follow-up to the summit we did back in January. Trying to schedule a meeting for next week. do have a Zoom call with a part of that, which is the educational cohort program that we're working on. We're really not far enough to give you much as far as details. It's in its infancy, but we're working on that program. And then another thing we're doing that's a little different, and I'm glad Mr. Patton's here because I just realized we should invite you to this meeting. We've invited the banks to a meeting to discuss how there's a way to potentially pool CRA funds or CRA monies with the banks to support small businesses. And some of that came out of, I know Chris Walker comes up here and talks about some of the businesses he's talked to, and there was concern that a lot of them hadn't gotten to the point where they've actually opened doors and started that business. And some of that was related to funding. And so I talked to a number of the banks about doing something like this, and they were all very positive about it. We got a couple of RSVPs today, as a matter of fact, for the meeting next week. And we will hopefully have further positive information to provide y'all as far as where that's advancing. But they seem interested. If nothing else, we can promote that because there's not a lot of promotion about CRA out there. And we can promote it in the community and hopefully assist some people with getting started. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have. I know later on down the road, we also have a good presentation from UTPB, and that'll be further on in your agenda. So, any questions, concerns? Yes, sir.
Tom, I have one, just out of curiosity, on your BR&E visits list, it shows Councilman Mata. Is that a referral that Councilman Mata is making? Is that where, what?
You know, that one was,
Says emailed grant application.
I would imagine, I believe that one came from Tracy. You know, I would say if she referred to him, he probably had a project or somebody that,
Prospect?
prospect to reach out to.
Okay.
Typically, before we put it on this list, moving forward, it probably needs to be more of a face-to-face. But yeah, we try to, whenever we get a referral from a board member, council member, anyone like that, we try to reach out real quick and
Yeah.
sometimes they don't get back with us, I'll tell you that much, but we try to reach out because we know sometimes they might come back behind us and check on. Any other questions, concerns?
Anybody else?
When is your meeting with the banks?
17th at lunch. So, and I will mention, I'm gonna stay as long as I can. I know there's a executive or closed session later to discuss a project. But I also have a meeting later this afternoon at Texas Tech Health Science Center that I need to be at, so I'm gonna stay as long as I possibly can. If you see me slip out, obviously it's not that I'm disinterested in anything. So,
Excellent.
thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Tom.
Okay.
All right, current media partners, Ms. Christie.
Good afternoon. Quick update, probably the biggest thing that we wanted to bring is to talk about the target industry analysis. The report is still coming your way. We're finalizing that, but I did want to go ahead and share with you the industries that did emerge from that study. So the ones that we're looking at primarily, and there's some that I think we'll give more emphasis on in marketing than we will in others. Some of them I think will be a little bit softer approach. But the first two are renewable energy, excuse me, and renewable energy manufacturing. So that's something that we're taking a look at. I think we will probably go a little heavier, at least in the marketing side, on the manufacturing side. The report goes pretty deep into what specifically can be manufactured, what we should go after. Those are the things that we're trying to determine right now. Manufacturing is obviously on the list. I think we all knew that that would be. That's something that we've done for a long time, so we'll definitely continue that. One that came up though is construction. And one thing when you see the full report, Golden Shovel took and they compared Odessa to several other cities about our size in Texas and then one in New Mexico. And what was interesting across the board is we were way under all of our competitors in the construction arena. That had to do with the availability of trades, actual construction companies. A lot of our construction is obviously going out of market and has been for some time. So that was something that they recommended that we look further into, and so we're looking at that and how we will attack that next. The other two that are on here, one is for professional services. I think we heard that a lot during the Workforce Summit, that we are deficient in some of the professional services. So we're looking at that. I do think that we will approach that totally different than we would going after any other industry. I know we spoke with the advertising committee, that may be more through workforce development is where we might kind of go at that a little bit as well. And then the last one was really doing more to support infrastructure, which I know the board is already doing, looking at ways to highlight the things that have already been done with the addition of Bass Pro and the infrastructure to that development and other developments, as well as some of the partnerships with TxDOT. I think we can take that and maybe go at that more as a PR angle than really through some of the digital tactics that we've been doing on some of the other industries. So with that being said, I just wanted to share those while you're waiting for the report, just so you kind of knew, what was on there and what we're going after. Our digital campaigns, we did go ahead and in April keep those budgets at that lower level that we've been at for several months. In May, the plan will be to go up to the original levels based on some of this information. So we'll kind of step into that as we have all of this new data. And again, I think I told you the full report's 95 pages. We have a lot to pull from. So that is good. So we have that. Gave you a little bit of information again on lead forensics, just a little bit about what we're seeing come through that. And I met with the economic development staff and we kind of reviewed those, going over the actual company names as well. So I know that there were some that Tom and Tracy have on their list that they're looking at. We showed you some of the new creative about 3 weeks ago when we met. We are starting to place that in trade publications, and as a result, we're also asking for editorial, which is a little bit my journalism background. That's a little bit different tactic to go at it, but that's how those publications work. So far, we did have an article in Business Expansion Journal on the Liberty Project. And as we are doing these, we're just submitting editorial at every term so that we have more to share. So I think you'll see more of that coming out. We have some good things to say, and we want to make sure that we take advantage. So that's basically my report for now, unless there's any questions.
Just have one request, if you, maybe we could incorporate this. When we talk about, website statistics, things like all those statistical things, we get all this stuff. Could we start incorporating a little, graph in there that shows what our growth is from, sometimes it's really helpful to have that little bit of history, see how, because I know these numbers are growing, and they have grown over the last year, but sometimes it's really helpful for me to see it on a little graph, because we want to see the line going that way.
Well, I think seeing the line going that way, and also when it's going the
Down,
other way, we need to know
we
that
need-
too. So sure,
Yeah.
I'll bring those next time
Okay, thank
for the report.
Excellent. Any other questions? Thank you, Christy.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so the Black Chamber of Commerce report is in your packet, which brings us to UTPB, Small Business Development. Mr. Patton.
Good afternoon, good to see you all again. My report's in the packet, but I kind of wanted to just review the Q1 of 2024, if you don't mind. Overall, for the quarter, we had about 660 counseling sessions so far this year, a little less than 600 counseling hours. We have been down about a person for about a couple of different portions of the last 2 months due to illness, but we're hanging in there. We've done 14 workshops. The most popular of those were the government contracting and the start a franchise workshops. Both of those were sponsored by the Permian Basin Black Chamber of Commerce. So I'm here to thank them. Let's see, about 10 new businesses. Of those startups, I'll just give you kind of examples. We had a home inspection business. We have a gun and ammunition retailer. We had a baked goods company, and we also had a wellness center. So that's pretty representative of what our clients normally look like, those type of industries. Capitalization, we're about 1.5 million so far for this calendar year. The ones who got it recently were a staffing agency, an oil field service company. So that's good. It's been a while since we've had one of those. A food truck, sneaker sales, who actually opened up a shop in Odessa recently. He expanded. He already had one in another community. And then a welding service contractor. As far as jobs, those startups and the ones with capitalizations pretty much generated most of those jobs. but one that's not on here is a speech therapist company who was a client of ours who has also been able to expand in terms of jobs. Upcoming workshops, actually I say upcoming, one of them just happened yesterday. It was our QuickBooks workshop. We had 31 people attend. Again, it was co-sponsored by the Permian Basin Black Chamber of Commerce. So,
Excellent.
way to go. But it was a really good turnout. It's about a 4-hour event. If you've ever sit through a QuickBooks workshop, I pity you, but the people who need it get a lot out of it. They get great feedback for our presenter as well. Let's see. We've also got a how to start a business workshop coming up, hub certification workshop. We're going to start the Frost Bank Summer Series. We're going to start at the end of May. It's going to be basically a group of 6 1-hour workshops over lunch. And then we're going to have an export workshop, which I'm excited about. We're going to do that in combination with U.S. Commercial Services, who have just opened an office in the Permian Basin.
Excellent.
First time, I think, in a decade. They have one here now, so that's great. The SBA Awards Luncheon coming up May 1st. I wanted to invite all of you. If I have your email, I'm going to be sending you an email in the morning inviting you as well. It will be May 1st, 11:30 to 1. It will be a luncheon. We have 2 Odessa winners. Scout Aviation is the winner for the Permian Basin for veteran-owned business, and Dr. Frio Heat and Air Conditioning for minority-owned business. Both of those are terrific clients of ours, and they were great representation for the kind of services that we can provide and the kind of success that a small business owner can see. Not to brag too much, but also at the same event, we will be, the UTPB SBDC will be awarded the Center of Excellence and Innovation for SBA Region 6.
Excellent.
Which encompasses Texas, Louisiana, Oklahoma, New Mexico, and Arkansas. So I hope you attend if possible, and we look forward to seeing you.
Fantastic.
Questions?
Questions for Mr. Patton? Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tyler. Appreciate you.
You bet.
Okay. Motran's update is in the board packet, which brings us to City Administrative Financial Reports. Ms. Kaylee Banda.
Hello, everyone. I was about to say good morning, but it's not morning anymore, so afternoon.
If you say good after morning, that kind of covers it all.
There we go. I'm gonna start saying that. Not as long of a presentation for you all today, because we're getting caught up.
Yay.
See if I can pass it over. I think that'll cover it more. So today we have the January financial report. And I don't like to shout, so I'm going to turn this on. It's good to be here with you all today. I've been out at a conference all week, and Jay was there too, along with the rest of the fire pension board. So if y'all see me nodding off, just throw something at me, because it's been a little bit of a long week, but I'm really glad to be here with you. Okay, so first we're going to go through this investment report, January 24. So if you'll just follow through with me, total assets are going to show at $84,726,252. Again, like I mentioned last month, you'll see that due from general fund line item there, just because it took our accounting staff a little while to transfer the sales tax over to your tax pool account. So that'll show there until March, and then it'll clear because it was transferred over in March. Following down that accounts payable, same thing that we talked about last time, that cleared in March. It was just a small line item that had not cleared in January. Okay, and so total fund balance as of the end of this month is $84,689,232. If you'll flip through to the statement of revenues expenditures, this month we received sales tax of $1,091,775. We recorded some interest income, a couple other miscellaneous things there. Down in the expenses, the biggest line items, we paid out the quarterly contracted services, so you'll see that to the Chamber of Commerce, Motran, and then the Small Business Development Center. Under the promotional category, we had some marketing expenditures of $37,000, and then the Black Chamber of Commerce $12,500. And I did take a look at the promotional expenditures that we've been talking about, so we'll go over that here in a little bit. It's another handout in your packet. Okay, so the excess revenues for this month, January, $1,033,198. As of January, on the next page, in the changes in reserve fund balance, no changes as of January, although I will mention that in March we did pay out the third incentive payment for Apergy, and that was $200,000. So I just did want to mention that. Over to the investment summary. I'm actually just going to have y'all flip to the end of month investment portfolio because I think that has more info. Well, obviously it has more info, but just more things that we can discuss here instead of looking at the summary. So in the text pool and logic combined, we had an amount of $63,068,627. Under that, we had the Frost money market. I did look into that, and so that 2% that is showing there as the rate for the money market in Invesco is incorrect. So that's a manual input line item, so I didn't catch that it didn't change. So that's why. As of today, it's paying out at 5.22%, so that's a lot more in line with, I think, what we're wanting to see and what we think should be paying out. So I'll make sure that that gets changed. So following that, we have the First Bank and Trust in the West Texas National Bank, totaling at $4,309,781. That First Bank and Trust CD is maturing this month. I have not heard from them yet, but I'll just reach out and see what we have, what they're going to do, if they're going to auto-renew it, or what kind of options we have for that. And then on that West Texas National Bank, that's another manual input there. So that is not paying at 2%, it's paying at 3.96, which I think we already talked about that when it first matured back in September, and I was reporting on it, but I'll make sure that gets changed as well. So that one won't mature until September 14th of this year. And then, as you know, those municipal securities have matured. So it's showing there in February. As of January, they were still in the portfolio, so that's why we've got to list them on here. But what happens is when those mature, they automatically roll into the Frost money market. So there's the functionality of the money market, and we were wondering kind of why we had that along with CDs and all these other things, and that's why. So Frost is our custodial agent, and so whenever we want to buy an investment, we go through them, we put the money in our money market, and that's how the transaction is facilitated. And then once those securities mature, rolls back into the money market without us having to do anything, or, you know. So that's the functionality of it. I wanted to let y'all know. So total investments, making sure, yeah, $79,978,577.
Kaylee,
Yes.
normally when I'm reviewing this, as you're going through it, I'm flipping back and forth to see the compare. Is there any way you could get this on one report and show it as a comparative report? You might have to turn it landscape or something, but we'll show
The beginning and the end?
Yeah, beginning of the month and the end of the month, and you know, any changes. I guess any columns that would change would be reflected with a beginning of month and end of month.
Yeah, so that, I guess, is kind of the point of the summary one, but I don't think the summary format is as user-friendly as these. That's why I kind of like to just go over these.
I mean, I like this report.
Okay.
If it was just on one page where I could look at comparative information, if it was that way.
Okay. I can mess with the format and see if that's possible. Any other questions on that investment report?
I should see this, but I think I know the answer, but I'm I'm gonna ask anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So our balance sheet shows, total assets of 84,726,252. And I know part of that is prepaid, I'm sorry. Is that due from general fund
Mm-hmm.
of 3.3 million? Yeah, that may be it. Yeah. I just wondered, but then, because our investment portfolio shows at the end a value of 79,978,000. That's about 4 million and some change difference. So I was wondering where that difference is.
Different than which number?
Then the balance sheet. The balance sheet shows total assets of
Total
84.7.
assets.
Yeah, total assets,
So the investments, the 79 million, you'll get that if you sum the 4 line items that say investments only. So the local government pool, CDs, CEDARs, muni securities, and then the money market.
He's wanting to tie the total investments of 79.9 to the total assets. He's wanting to know where's the difference between the total asset number and the total investment number.
So the difference between that would just be the due
interest
from,
receivable, sales
that's
tax
there,
receivable,
the
prepaid.
prepaids, yes, the sales tax receivable.
Okay,
Yes, that's the difference.
okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions on that one?
Yeah, and I don't know, I hadn't picked up on this, I guess, before. I don't recall if there's a reason that the Black Chamber of Commerce contract payments or show up under promotional.
Good question.
That's a good question. I noticed that as I was reconciling the promotional category. I need to pull the contract and see what verbiage is in there, but it must have something to do with why you guys grant them the money. If it's for promotional or advertising or, I'm not sure what it's for, but I'm sure that if I pull a contract, then we'll be able to figure out why we categorize it that way. But looking back at the promotional expenses, back to 2017, 18, we've always done that, so it's nothing new.
Yeah, I guess I'm thinking maybe there was some reason to do that, but I don't know that there would be any reason to do that today. I mean, the Black Chamber, as we heard from Tyler, they're interacting with the SBDC group and on a regular basis with their seminars and referrals and things like that, and I don't know why we would do that.
I would agree. I think that they should be listed just like all of our other vendors.
Okay.
Maybe in the next budget process,
Mhm.
we budget that differently.
And I still want to review the contract just to see if there's something in
Yeah.
there that indicates why it would be promotional versus not, so. But yes, I'll make that note for budget time as well, which we are encroaching upon, so y'all get ready. Okay, so we'll just keep going then. The next page y'all have is just the year-to-date sales tax revenue. I just like including this in there because it's a little bit more current than the investment report shows. So what we received in April, let me see, February, yes, but we received it, a few days ago. It would be that $1,162,489, so well above budget. I'm not sure why there's so little budgeted in this month. I thought that was a little bit odd, but the important thing is that we're well above budget on what we received. Okay, and then the last thing that I want to go over is the promotional items. So I did have to update the last couple of years. So the first page that you have here, starting at the top left, revenue. So that 2.2 million is what has rolled over on a year-to-date basis, and that includes that very initial time when you guys had to figure out retroactively what should have been rolling. So that's all in there. So of course we estimate 10% of the estimated sales tax received for this fiscal year noted, and so we budgeted 12 million. So there's that 1.2 in there. In the committed column, those are budgeted items, not actual expenditures, of course. And this is done at the beginning of the year. So what I've done in the pages behind, as you'll see, is I went back and did the actual expenditures so that this number, the 2.2 million that rolled, is as accurate as possible. And then I'll just plan to continue doing that once we close the fiscal year. I'll go in and update the actual expenditure so that we're rolling forward an accurate amount, so that you guys know what number that we're working with.
And then we'll have this along with, it'll be part of our proposed budget information.
Yes,
As we go.
yes. And so the balance for this current fiscal year is $2,463,599.67. So if you want to flip back, that second sheet is the 2022-23 fiscal year. Same concept, except this one has actual expenditures. And again, you'll see the Black Chamber of Commerce payments included in here. So if we don't want to continue to do that, then we'll just going forward and remove that from this spreadsheet. And then lastly, the last page is 21-22 fiscal year with its actual expenditures.
So make sure I'm right here. On page 2,
Mm-hmm.
page 2, the act on 22-23, oh, no, I'm sorry. I got it, never mind. I figured it out.
Okay. Any questions on that? No?
It's clear.
Alrighty, thank y'all so much.
This is a public meeting, therefore any member of the public may address the ODC board regarding any of its agenda items before or during the consideration of that item. So if there on one of these items you'd like to speak, please let me know. We'll recognize you. Brings us to item 5, project update and discussion regarding Nacero. Mr. Hal Booknight, come on down.
Thank you, guys. It's good to be here again. I wanted to update you on a couple of items that are affecting our project going forward. But first of all, I want to thank you guys for your support long-term. I mean, we've been at this for 5 years, and we've been through some things together. The pandemic, the inflation, that still lingers on and impacts the progress of the project. So I wanted to give you an update today on those particular activities. Also want to make sure we continue the process of transparency with you guys. That is our strategy, to be transparent all the time, let you know what's going on, so you can plan your activities, we can plan our activities, and together we can be successful in this going forward. Today I want to address two main issues that are impacting us. One is the economy. We made a switch last year to jet fuel, sustainable aviation fuel, from the gasoline. Moving along well with that, we started talking to off-takers about taking the jet fuel. We encountered several of those off-takers, and the result of those encounters was they would give us contracts, but only for jet fuel pricing, not for sustainable aviation fuel pricing. So it becomes difficult to get a financing for the project with off-takers that won't give us the price we need to cover the cost of the projects. The other thing is the project was somewhat dependent upon incentives in the IRA bill. Basically, those are not underwritten by any infrastructure investment companies right now. There's just not longevity in those credits or those incentives long enough to be able to be supported by an investment program. So we've had major difficulty with getting the financing in place for the construction. We had planned to start some environmental activities late this year, early next year, finish the engineering activities. There's some things still lingering there also. The other thing that impacts us from a schedule standpoint is the technology itself. Our technology partner had agreed to accelerate the implementation of that technology. They have now come back and said they're not ready to guarantee it at that accelerated commitment they made before. They want a couple of more runs through their demonstration facility, which will happen late this year, early next year. May include additional runs after that before they will be able to guarantee that technology. So what we're seeing is really a situation where the schedule is being impacted by implementation of some of the activities. As you might expect, our investors are somewhat impatient. They've invested a lot of money so far, and I'm sure you guys are beginning to wonder, what's happening. And so what we have, our investors have said to us is we need to accelerate revenue generation. So we are looking at all possibilities for revenue generation. One thing we've come up with, and I'll tell you, we've really made a recommendation to the board. They've accepted this recommendation, would be to accelerate the methanol piece of this project, wait for the fuel conversion piece from methanol to the fuel, either gasoline or jet fuel. And right now there is a higher demand on methanol as a shipping fuel. You may have seen in articles, the major shipping companies are converting all of their engines over to dual fuel, which can mean methanol and heavy oil fuels also. So basically there is a higher demand now for the green methanol, if you will. We can make green methanol out of the facility that we designed to go on the ground here and then feed into the sustainable aviation fuel. The issue with that is the shipping industry wants this facility on the coast. So we have made a recommendation to the board to fund us to go ahead and build a methanol facility on the Gulf Coast somewhere that we would accelerate. The same facility would be put here at a later date, but accelerate that methanol piece to get that started and generate some revenue. So that's the recommendation we've made to our board. Make sure I've covered everything before I open up for questions here. Let me just say that this in no way jeopardizes the project here. We still want to do the project here. I know there's a lot of things we've got to work out in terms of time schedule and commitments that we've got from taxing entities. We're working through all those as we go, but the intent would be to hold the project at the point it is right now until we get the market. We see a turn in the market, and we get the go ahead on the technology. Methanol itself, we will advance that. What that really does for the project here, it reduces the risk tremendously. If we can get that first up and running, then we know we can duplicate it here. And that will make that schedule go a lot faster when we do get to the point of putting in the fuel conversion facility. So that's the quick update. It's not all good news, but I don't think it's bad news. We're still committed to this area. The way you guys have worked with us, the way the tax entities have worked with us is really instrumental in our business model to make it work. So we're here for the long term, but it is going to be a longer term than we have expected. So open it up for questions.
When you say longer term, what is your new expectation?
It's really hard to say because of a couple of things. One is if we start construction on another site, we've got to focus on that. It'll be a faster construction because there'll be less to put on the ground. That methanol unit has been built many times around the world by other companies, so it's proven technology, no problem with startup, but it will take time to build it. We think if we get the financing to start that, and we really haven't gotten all the finance to start it. We're really in the early stages. We have some offtake commitments we're working through right now. Once we can get those in place, then the financing should be fairly easy to get for a methanol unit with a demand for methanol like it is on a daily basis. The construction cycle of that is probably 4 years to get it on the ground, generating revenue. It doesn't mean we won't be working on this one. I've got a team of process engineers that are working with the technology partner on a continuous basis, working in the pilot facility, looking at the results, implementing or converting those to engineering drawings, and that'll be done in parallel with the effort. But likely once we get this one started up, we would start the other one, and so projections somewhere in the 5 to 10 year frame down the road.
Hal, if you get the guarantee that you're looking for regarding the technology, I guess I'll call it. I mean, you're still dependent upon the market conditions, right?
Right.
So do you have any kind of a forecast with regard to market conditions changing, or can you tell us a little bit about what's gonna cause that to happen, or, you know?
The big, it's hard to say. You know, there are, the industry, the transition fuel industry right now is in a state of definition. In other words, all the incentives, all the requirements for fuel, carbon content, fuel analysis haven't really been fully defined. So it is a market that is unfolding on a trial and error basis in a lot of cases. A lot of the smaller facilities that are announced and built have been built and haven't been started up because the economic conditions just don't warrant selling the higher priced fuel right now. The airlines won't buy the fuel. They say basically you got to be in parity with jet fuel pricing, and there's no way we can green up a fuel with additional facilities and processes and really get at parity pricing. So I think it's going to take a little bit of time to work into the market to build the demand some more. Really, supply and demand is what we're depending on here to make a project go. So we've got to keep working the market. We're commercially working airlines today in parallel with everything else we're doing. Same thing with the shipping industry. It's a bit the same because there is some inertia to a conversion to a green fuel in all of these industries.
I mean, is there any thought, I mean, because I don't know what the capabilities are, obviously, but that there's something that your company could do to make the product more competitive without other forces? Or?
What we are doing basically is the technology that we have for making methanol makes a lower carbon methanol to start with. We're actually working with the Methanol Institute, which is really the industry support organization that supports the whole methanol industry. Looks at things like what's driving the industry, how do they build the industry, how do they get people working together, both suppliers and off-takers and users of methanol. So that business is helping us understand what is the transition look like from, as we call it in the oil and gas industry, gray methanol to blue methanol, which is capturing some of the carbon, and then to green methanol, which is taking over 90% of the carbon out. And that transition, although we can do that, we have to buy renewable natural gas to feed to it in combination with the normal natural gas. We can do that, but it costs extra money to be able to do that. So what we're doing right now is looking at the market itself. The methanol market is a pretty balanced market, but with the growth of fuel and recognizing it as potentially a lower carbon fuel than the fuel oil they're burning now, we may be able to get into the gray methanol market. We're talking with 2 off-takers right now for gray methanol, and if that goes, then we'll be able to build a just methanol plant that's the traditional methanol facility from natural gas.
What are your estimated expenses for the methanol plant on the coast?
Cost-wise, it'll be probably in the range of $1.5 billion to $2 billion.
I don't know if you remember, but one of our first meetings we met actually, and you were there also, Mr. Boutin. One of the things I'd suggested to you was actually a suggestion from Mr. Harry was actually doing methanol here at that time.
Yeah.
Have y'all looked into the market here? We are a huge consumer of methanol in the Permian. And when I say a huge consumer, I mean that's what keeps our pipelines going, especially during the wintertime. It can be seasonal.
Yeah.
However, you know, we've got the demand out here. That would help our local companies, which is what we're all about.
We can certainly look at that. We have not looked at it in detail. We're looking at about 1.8 billion gallons a year of methanol from one train. So it's a lot of methanol and needs some large offtake companies. And we're talking to several different chemical companies now about offtake. So
I
But-
mean,
but we could look
every
into that.
chemical company, and I represent a chemical company, we're a small one, but we use a ton of methanol every day. We go through at least 3 tankers a week, and I'm a small company.
We could certainly give you a call.
I mean, here's my concern about all this when we start talking, particularly 5 to 10 years down the road. And my concern is, you know, back in 2022, the ODC gave you guys almost a $2 million grant. And, you know, I wasn't on the board at that time, but I went back and watched that video very carefully to hear the discussion and to hear what was being said. And, you know, that was based upon this kind of fuzzy math, in my opinion, fuzzy math, year one thing that went all the way back to 2018 when our agreement for this community didn't start until 2022 or 2021. And so, you know, there were assurances made at that point saying that, oh, that almost $100 million investment that was being made, that was exclusively for the Ector County project. And kind of what I'm hearing and feeling right now is that $100 million is now being kind of rolled into a potential plant in Corpus Christi, and that may be great for Corpus Christi, but that's not great for Ector County. And so I'm really concerned about the fact, and I know Mr. Crow expressed a lot of concerns, Mr. Robinson expressed concerns at that time about, you know, this rollback to 2018 and how that was all going to work, and also the fact that we've kind of repeatedly been promised, oh, we're just, you know, we're going to break ground here, we're going to break ground there, we're going to break ground. Now we're saying, you know, 5 or 10 years out, and it really gives me a lot of angst on 2 counts. One, that Ector County and Odessa City of Odessa taxpayers have invested $2 million into a project, and quite honestly, we have nothing to show for it. I mean, let's be honest, but there's nothing. I can drive out to the Penwell site, there's nothing that I'm going to see that's going to justify that investment. And we've also, from an ODC standpoint, we've got another $18 million allocated to the project, which we can't allocate and use on other projects. So, I mean, the combination of those 2 things really give me angst. You know, you kind of combine that with, I think you guys recently went through a pretty major layoff, from what I understand, of employees and restructuring. And, you know, I'd ask you about that, and also, you know, about, you know, because every time you guys have come up before, you know, into the community to give us an update, it's like, oh, we're working on the investors. Oh, no, it's going to be tax incentives. Oh, no, now it's going to be aviation fuel. Now it's going to be this. Now it's going to be that. And I mean, it seems like we've got a ping pong ball bouncing across the floor that we're trying to catch. And I'm not sure that that's a great place for us to be as a community that's now invested, you know, $2 million into a project. You know, at least in my estimation, you know, I don't see you guys any closer to catching the ping pong ball than you were.
Can you give us an update on your finances, Hal, as far as, I mean, what kind of assets do we have in the bank? What's our burn rate? I mean, can you make it 4 or 5 years to get this other plant built before we look at anything here in Hector?
Our board is very closely watching that. I can give you a report on finances later. I'm not going to try to give you finances today. Our burn rate is about $600,000 a month, and the board has committed to fund that.
For how long?
They haven't put a date on it. We have had a recent layoff. It wasn't a massive layoff. It was 3-4 people that we laid off, but it was in focus of trying to cut costs a bit more.
I think one of those was a local.
Yes,
right.
was.
So your local representative
Yes.
here is no longer with the company.
That's right. That's correct.
Does that signify that you guys are looking to pull out of the area with cutting
Nope.
our local representation?
No, I'm here today to tell you we're not. We have a plan and the assets we have, all of that money all along, we indicated that we had aspirations to design one time and build many plants. And, you know, that's been a truthful statement
But
from
we've
the
gone
very
from
beginning.
gasoline to sustainable jet fuel, now we're on to
Same
methane.
methanol facility, same fuel facility, just a little bit different reaction system on the back and refining system to clean up the fuel. So it's not a significant change from what we've been doing. We intend to come back and build the SAF here because of the generosity of the community, because of the way you guys have worked with us, supported us through some pretty dismal times. And, you know, there's not many projects that have survived. We have survived. We intend to survive long-term. We have aspirations to build the sustainable aviation fuel facility here in Odessa, Pinwell.
So with that being said, why are we looking at Corpus Christi for the methanol part to begin with?
I've
versus
never
here?
said we're looking at Corpus Christi.
Okay.
It's one of the
Well, you said
places we're
coast.
looking. I said a Gulf Coast location.
Mhm.
You know, we are looking at multiple facilities along the Gulf Coast. We looked at here. The problem with here is the distribution of marine fuel needs to be on the coast so we can bunker it and put it in the ships. We can't transport methanol by pipeline for a long way. Pipelines just won't, it's too corrosive for that. So basically, we'd have to rail it. 1.8 billion gallons of fuel a year takes multiple unit trains a week to get it off the site. More cost, in other words, the cost of the fuel goes up because of the transportation cost they get it to the coast. So it's much better business proposition to put it there for marine fuel because of the location.
I think when you look into what the consumption rate is in Ector County, Midland County, and within the Permian Basin, I think you're going to see that you're not going to be transporting quite as much as what you think you're going to be transporting.
Good.
And that's something
I
we
hope
really
that's-
need to
I hope that's true.
investigate before we go a whole lot further. Because I mean, we've put $2 million into Nacero, and we really need to get that back.
The intent is to get it back when we build a facility. That's right.
So, if you were sitting in our seats, Hal, how do we justify keeping our money tied up with no, and I'm just gonna be, and again, this is me, with no reasonable hope at this point of a return? We're being asked for 5 to 10 years to keep that money tied up, to maybe forego other projects that may come down the road, on the hope. I mean, when I look at the history, and I'm gonna be a little bit harsh here, but when I look at the history of Nacero, we started in Arizona, we ended up in Pennsylvania, we ended up in Pinwell, Texas. Now we're gonna end up on the Gulf Coast somewhere. You know, over this whole time period, there's been a lot of promises made. There hasn't been anything realized, as to the best of my knowledge, that has actually occurred in any one of those communities to date.
Nope.
We've also heard, you know, things. You know, the last time that I believe I was with you was at a breakfast meeting, and it was all the focus was on, we've applied for these federal grants through the IRA bill and all that. That's looking really good. We made it to stage 2 and all that. And I hear from you today, well, probably not there. I mean, I'm just having a hard time kind of swallowing it all down at this point, to believe that this is a viable project. You know, on top of that, I did a little research. You know, there's apparently, as best I could tell in my research, there's only 3 gas to liquid plants in the world right now. And there's one in Qatar, there's one in South Africa, there's one in Nigeria. Each one of those has been built and funded by a multinational oil company. And yet, when you look into what they've been able to achieve with those plants, they're operating, they're producing product, and some of them have been for a number of years, for up to 10 years, but they're also largely felt to not be very profitable, and they haven't expanded them. They have no plans to expand them. You know, there's a number of others, including you know, the Russian oil company Gazprom and those guys that have looked at it and basically said, you know, this is a not a really viable project. You know, on top of that, I'm listening to Bloomberg radio a month or so ago, and the CEO of United Airlines is on talking about sustainable aviation fuel, and her comment was, she said, you know, it's something we continue to look at. She said, but the reality of it is, while there are a lot of interesting things happening in a lab, the reality of it is no one has been able to get it past a pilot project on a very small scale. And she said, you know, basically they don't believe that's going to happen anytime soon. So I mean, you look at all those things, and you know, again, and it really frustrates me, I guess, as a taxpayer, to realize that we've got $2 million sunk into this thing, and I mean, honestly, I don't see that there's any return coming anytime in the foreseeable future.
We can choose to debate the gas to liquids. That's a different technology that you're talking about than what we're using. Methanol is a chemical that's made all over the world today. It's been around for probably 100 years. Technology. It's an advanced technology. It's a lower carbon technology. So we are bringing a new technology to the table for that. The fuel technology is proven from a gasoline standpoint. There's a plant operating in the world. We would be the second plant. But you know, the market for gasoline was really a level market, maybe a declining market because of EVs. Now, the future is anybody's guess on EVs, how fast. So we made the switch. It was a basic switch that we made that our shareholders agreed with. So we made that switch. And about that time, we made the switch to bring it here because of the abundance of natural gas. That was the decision process we had. I'm not here to defend it. We can take an offline meeting and we can talk more about it, but that's what we intended to do then. That's what we're still intending to do. We can bring fuel to market. We can bring it cheaper in the long run than other companies using this technology that you're talking about, which we agree is not a viable technology. It's not a viable technology. Nobody is spending money on it except the multinational corporations that really have lots of natural gas and nothing to do with it. No, they don't have any fuel production, so they're converting that to a fuel using their natural gas. All those countries you mentioned have abundant natural gas. So that's a different technology. We're not using that technology. We're using a methanol to fuel technology, a methanol to olefins technology, which is a technology that's been around for a long time. The off products are made used in plastics. They're used in all kinds of things. When it's produced from a refinery methanol, we're producing from a natural gas methanol. We can go that way, or we can produce fuels. We are out collecting, putting deals together with renewable natural gas companies to feed renewable natural gas on a book and claim basis. We generate that renewable natural gas somewhere else, put it in the pipeline, we pull it out here.
Explain renewable natural gas to me.
Renewable natural gas is like a landfill gas. When you have a landfill where you have it covered over,
methane produced
it generates methane inside in the reaction. Waste treatment facilities, sometimes they cover those over and you can generate methane in them. Plant waste, if you collected wood waste or farm waste or anything organic waste, you can make it into renewable natural gas. And there's numbers of companies across the nation that are doing that. It's smaller diameter pipelines, lower flow, so you have to aggregate a lot of it. But that's our green up process. We're using that process to green up the natural gas, to green up the fuel.
which is really not beneficial to the Permian Basin, which is producing, let's call it traditional natural gas out
Well,
of the ground.
but it is, because we have to actually buy the natural gas out of the pipeline to get the renewable natural gas. So it's a trade-off on the cost, if you will. But love to sit down and explain the whole thing to you. I think it may help.
You know, the only,
get
the
you up to
only
speed.
explanation that I'm really looking for, I guess, is how do we justify,
Okay, well, let me address that, because what I've said to lots of folks around, is basically, we followed the agreement that we made. We had a third-party auditor audit for that first $2 million. It was all clean, it was agreed to by a third-party auditor, and it was all clear. So I don't think there's any, I don't feel badly about that process. We called earlier than the due date for the second payment. We said, we're not gonna make that, we're not gonna make the third payment, and we haven't taken any more. If that money, it has needs elsewhere, we're very willing to give it up. If that helps any of the feeling of the board here, we're very willing to give it up. We like that. Again, we came here because of the incentive structures, because of the benefits of the community and supporting a development like this. But if we need to give that up, we'll gladly give that up.
You know, I'm with Mr. Russell on a lot of this, and that, you know, I was really hoping we would see more too.
Receive what?
See more as well out of the project up to this point. And so, I'm a little anxious in that now we're shifting gears and, you know, trying to put this on the back burner for another 5+ years, and we're gonna shift our attention down to the Gulf Coast. So, you know, I think maybe we need to talk about that, and unreserving the 18 million we have, for the time being, and still having hopes that Nacero will come back to, you know, to the table and say, look, we're ready, let's go, and have everything in place. I do know you have purchased land. You had options on other land. Are those options still available to you?
Those options have expired. We did not renew those options.
Okay, so you do have some land, which gives us some hope, but I think the proper thing for us to do for our taxpayers would be to unreserve the amount we have in the time being, especially because it looks like you're 5 years out before you're gonna need it anyway. And if we can use that for other projects, I know that the city has quite a few that are on the docket that hopefully we'll be able to put to fruition, and that money would come in very handy. But we're gonna need to have some conversations about that.
I believe the agreement gives either of us the option to close that deal with 30 days notice. So that's what it takes.
Okay.
It's disappointing because,
Well,
again, that's what brought us here.
You know, again, let me be clear that I'm just giving my opinion, but the board will need to have conversations on that and talk and see what they want to do.
Well, I think it makes some sense to look at the agreement and determine, you know, I've always been an advocate of following what the agreement, I mean, you know, we need to treat this as the city commits to do something, then we ought to fulfill that. So let's see what the options are with regard to the agreement. And,
Sure.
I think that makes sense.
And I agree with you. I mean, we want to make sure that the city commits to something, we're going to follow through with it. But I think the things that have happened over the last couple of years, especially with the big change and having to put this project on the back burner for many years, changes that agreement considerably. So, but I wholeheartily agree with you, David, that, you know, we just need to sit down and
Yeah, it
visit.
changes the potential.
Right.
And particularly with regard to the time frame.
Right. So, let me be clear. First of all, thank you so much for coming in to give us the update. You know, it's been a while since we've heard anything, and so this goes a long way. You know, just you coming in and being transparent and sharing the information as far as where Nacero is at in the direction that you're taking right now, and I hope you'll continue to do that no matter what as you guys move forward.
Well, certainly, if anything changes contrary to that, I'll be back in touch with you guys. Likewise, you know, the phone can work the other way. I think you all can have my phone number, or you can get it through Tom. You know, be glad to have a conversation, come out, sit down with any group of people and talk about it. We started from the beginning being open and transparent about this. This is a difficult project. Not many big projects succeed, I'll grant you that. It's a tough business to be in, and the industry is very tough right now. So I appreciate your patience and appreciate your support. And if there's any more questions I can answer, I'll answer them now or carry on.
Just the mechanics of it, what drives the need for dual fuel and shipping? What, is it for green only or supply? Originally, the methanol and alcohols were used to supplement shortage, so
Right.
What's the driving force?
It is green methanol that's the driving force. It is the regulations that have been put in place by the different governments around the world to go green.
Are there any of them that are total methanol fuel, not?
Well, the objective is to get to total methanol, but in the transition, there's not enough volume of methanol out there.
So then there's a future for growth in that
Absolutely,
industry. and that's
absolutely.
what
We
you-
can
that's
show
what
you that.
see,
Yeah,
the
we can show
problem.
you that data. The market is a growing market for methanol.
Okay.
That's definitely something that we do need to see, and just I really highly do encourage you. It may not be the scale that you guys are originally looking at wanting to do as far as going into sustainable aviation fuel or gasoline or whatever it is, but as far as kind of getting going, I'm kind of concerned that we didn't look into the original market to begin with as far as just an off source to take a look at. That's something really important, especially starting off a project. That could be that catalyst to say, hey, we started with methanol, we generated it for the local economy that has a definite need, and we have upgraded that plant to be able to do sustainable aviation fuel or whatever the next new thing is that ends up coming through. But you already have the plant, you already have the stock, you've already got the proven technology that's going. You guys are leaps and bounds above everything, and there's, like I said, there's I'm not saying we can take all 1.8 billion gallons of methanol out here to be able to be used, but we can take a considerable portion of it.
Okay.
Any other questions for Hal? Awesome, Hal. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, brings us to item 6. Consider a resolution approving the economic development agreement with the University of Texas of the Permian Basin as part of a collaboration with Permian Strategic Partners and the Midland Development Corporation to develop a SAS analytics workforce model that will support plans to close the workforce gaps and to provide support for economic development. Mr. Mansky, would you give us an update?
Good afternoon again. You will find in your packet a resolution along with an EDA, along with a proposal from UTPB about a workforce analytics project. I'm not here to say on that. UTPB brought the A team, so I'm going to call them up here in a minute. But I did want to mention that all that information is in. I think actually the EDA was handed out a little late because we got it back late from our attorney. And when you look down to the third whereas, that's probably the statute that is most applicable to this project. And so you'll be considering a resolution to support that, to approve that EDA today, if you choose to do so. I know that many of us are new to the project. We haven't seen a demo, and so Dr. Woodley asked if she could come and bring some of her team to provide a demo or discuss any specific questions y'all may have. And so I'm going to call Dr. Woodley up here at this time, if that's okay.
Come on down.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. You know, there are a few projects, and I've worked on a lot of projects in my, how many decades I've been doing this, but there are a few projects that I've been as excited about as this. You know, as university president here, you know, one of the things I work on mostly is how many graduates can I generate every year for the workforce? And how do I know what are the most important programs and how many do I need? What efforts do I need to double down on and what efforts do I need to pull back on based on what the need is here in the Permian Basin? You know, really for the last 4 years, almost 5 years, I've been working with SAS Analytics, and I have a team here and they'll come and show a demo in a moment, which is a, international company that does analytics, and education is part of their portfolio, but they do everything, all the analytics in lots of different areas. The ability to connect data in the entire pipeline of workforce and provide evidence-based, executive dashboards to all the decision makers who have to, line up their strategic plans in order to achieve what we're all trying to achieve here is what this project is about. We want to be able to look at understanding very specifically what the workforce gaps are going to be over the next 5 to 10 years, but keep that data updated every single year so that we understand how many of what kind of jobs that we're going to need. From our own, recent analysis that we looked at, we know that there's 190,000 jobs that are going to be needed in the Permian Basin over the next 20 years just to fill the jobs that are coming available and those who are leaving and retiring. Of those 190,000 jobs, 38,000 of them, these new jobs will require a baccalaureate degree. And so all of this spectrum of workforce is what this project would do. It would take very specific, sophisticated economic data to understand what the workforce gaps. That's year one. And you'll see a little bit of a demo of that in just a moment. Year two really does then connect that workforce data with what's in the entire pipeline to fill it. So what's at UTPB, what's at Midland College, what's at Odessa College, what's at Texas Tech Health Science Center, and all of the surrounding educational institutions in the Permian Basin to understand what are the projections of what we will graduate in those areas over the next period of time, and what's the gap, what's left, what do we have to work on. And then we want to take that and go further down into the K-12 institutions as well. How many students are there? What are they interested in? How do we look at the entire pipeline from kindergarten to when they graduate, from when they go, into the workforce? And then we want to be able to connect that with career outcomes data. What kind of jobs are the students in our educational institutions taking? Are they staying in the Permian Basin? What are their salaries? How are we closing the gaps? And most significantly is when we get this analytics project up and going, the analysis and the policy analysis that comes from it will serve every decision maker that has a role in making sure that we can be very strategic and intentional about closing that pipeline over time and tracking our progress every single year. The other opportunity that we have here is to use these data and analytics to recruit companies into our cities. Midland Development Corporation, this project is on their agenda coming up in a few weeks as well. One of the things they're excited about is being able to communicate with would-be companies that are coming in so that they can see how intentional we are about the workforce, but they can understand not only the workers that we have on the ground now, but what's in the pipeline, to fill the needs for those companies. I think these tools would be an amazing opportunity for the university to step up with all of our partners and really provide this service that will help us all get better. So I'm really excited about the project. The financing of the project is a little under $1 million a year. We're asking for a 2-year commitment with the opportunity when it goes as well as I'm sure it's going to go to renew that in future years. So this is a renewable project that allows us to continue this work over a long period of time. The request in front of you respectfully is to be one of 3 partners to fund this. Permian Strategic Partnership would invest $150,000. We're asking for Midland Development Corporation and Odessa Development Corporation to split the rest of it for a total project cost in the first year of $946,558, and then the second year $991,561. PSP not only wants to be a part of this project, but as you may know, PSP also actually funds scholarships and operating dollars for workforce projects. So part of what their role will be after we get this up and going, and this is continuing role for them, is when we identify where the gaps are, then they'll work with the institutions to be able to say, okay, what do we need to do to make sure that we can persuade and have campaigns and convince our students in any stage of the pipeline to choose those really amazing, high impact careers and high need careers so that we can, get them in the pipeline to be able to choose those careers to go. So PSP's investments will go beyond this. They actually invest in programs. You know, for example, one of the things that PSP has done is they've invested over $10 million for University of Texas Permian Basin to create behavioral health counselors, for example. Scarborough was a part of that. They've invested in nursing. They've invested in pre-health. And so I think there are more investments to come, but having the evidence-based ability to understand what the needs are and to tackle it, and most importantly, to track the progress is what we're after. So before we do a demo, I want to stop and see if you have any questions about the proposal. And we're glad to show you a little bit of what it looks like.
So I know you and I have talked about this before, but when you look at, 190,000 jobs, 38,000 of those being degree jobs, is there also a plan or a way to all of those, let's call them trade jobs? Or I don't know what you call that other 150,000 jobs, but to really be able to understand that as well.
Oh, this will do all of it. So this is not just about baccalaureate degrees. That's just the part that, I'm responsible for. But Midland College and Odessa College will be a part of this as well, because and you'll see in a minute in the tool, we'll be able to understand how many welders do we need, how many machinists do we need. Many, many more of the jobs that will be needed will not require a baccalaureate degree. It's all good. All of those skilled trades are really important. And so the goal here really, is to work with the entire pipeline of whatever we need here, and then try to find a way that those who have the ability to step up and close that gap work together, and we understand, the pieces where we work together. Midland College and Odessa College, we work, for example, together with them on the education pipeline, these 2+2 programs, these accelerated programs that, allow them to start at the community college and make their way here. So this, analytics project will allow basically joint strategic planning that goes beyond the anecdotes that we use. And we have some data, but we don't have it sophisticated at our fingertips so that everybody knows what's in the pipeline and how many we need and over what period of time to get much more specific. But, to answer your question, Mr. Russell, this is not just about baccalaureate degrees. This is the whole thing.
Yeah, I think you heard Christy mention earlier, as we've done this project with Golden Shovel that we've been working on for a good while now, the construction trades, things like that. That's where we're seeing major gaps and
yes,
and all, and even in my opinion, even starting before high school graduation,
right,
is where we have to be. We have to start them in high school probably, and
I agree,
and start developing those skill sets. And
right. Well, you're right. I mean, I think, you think about everything associated with the construction industry. And my work with Scott Murray and Stephanie Howard really addresses that. How do we start in the very early ages and make sure that students in the pipeline understand all of the options in front of them? There's a project with Ravi Shakamori that we're looking at as well. I don't know, you may have heard of the Access Project. We're getting more information on that. I think Midland Development Corporation is invested in that, where they get into the high schools and they map out pathways. Technical pathways, skilled pathways, baccalaureate pathways, healthcare pathways, all of that. And we might have the ability to pull that data in so that at least we understand, who's interested in what. But taking the construction industry, we're about to start a civil engineering program. Think of all the construction out here and all the civil engineering. They're screaming for civil engineers. And so that would be our contribution, if you will, to the construction. We need civil engineers, right? We need to be able to really ramp up that part of our engineering. And of course, Odessa College and Midland College has, a very important role to play as well in all of that. So, I'm excited about pulling together the entire universe of leaders, both educational, business and industry leaders, economic development leaders, and being a service. Having this as a way to be able to bring that evidence-based information so that everyone at least understands what the facts are and understands how we're doing over a period of time.
What is the time frame for the project? As
Well,
far as gathering information and having the knowledge at our fingertips to use.
Yeah.
What's that timeframe?
We'll have the first phase of this up and running probably in the next 6 or 7 months. We're not starting from scratch, as I mentioned before, because we've been working on this project as a prototype for 4 years with PSP and SAS Analytics. COVID got in the way, quite frankly, and there were, this was early in the PSP days before Tracy Bentley came, and so we had some beginning, opportunities to look at it, and we've been working with SAS to refine it over time. We just haven't had the funding to really accelerate the project. I think with the, but we're not starting from scratch, as you'll see in a moment. The prototype that they'll show you doesn't have the latest economic data in it. So it's old data. So look less at the data. Part of what is needed, with the funding is to be able to update all of those data sources and to keep those updated and automated into an analytics system so that it's available to build those dashboards over time. But it'll be a quick start because we've been working on it for a while.
Dr. Woodley, could you give a rough estimate of what the $1 million a year will be
Sure.
going toward?
Yes, part of what's needed, of course, is the software and the data that we'll have to purchase for being able to do it. We've got to be able to have SAS come in and do the consulting that will, and their staff will come in and take the data, pull it into the dashboards, get it up and running, start the automation process to build it, database management, the hosting, you have to host the data, the modeling to be able to create the models to go forward. And so that is what, we need to do in year one. Ongoing, we'll phase out of needing SAS to do the consulting because the University of Texas Permian Basin and our analytics program can pick it up. So we can do it as a service. So we'll be working hand in hand with SAS Analytics in year one and part of year two to get the models up and going, to bring the databases in, to work with all of our partners collectively to pull their data sources in, and then of course to do the modeling, and then the policy analytics and the briefings that will come out of the project is what will happen as well. The university wants to be able to, as a service, work with all of our economic partners and our industry partners and the educational partners to provide these briefings very regularly, to put those dashboards at everybody's fingertips. The great part about the project as well is we have the ability, once we get it up and running, to create custom dashboards for whoever wants. I talked to Willie, at the Workforce Commission. What do you need? How can we work with you? What's not at your fingertips that it takes you a long time to pull up to be able to do your work? We can automate it and set it up for you, and then they have their own dashboard. My dashboard will look different from Greg Williams' dashboard, right? He's looking at all of the technical and the associate degrees that he has, and he wants to know, okay, what's the demand for that, and what do I have in the pipeline, and how do I really go out and fundraise, if you will, for scholarships and support to be able to make sure that those high demand areas get done. But the ongoing of it will always include the need to purchase data, the need to be able to pull the data into the models, to do the modeling, to do the analytics, and to create the briefings, and of course to be able to have for the university to continue to serve in an advisory council situation to pull these entities together on the long-term strategic planning. Well, just one piece of that, but we could facilitate the evidence-based part of it.
That's one thing we've talked about, is having a central location for all of this knowledge and
That's right.
information, and the ability to disseminate that among all of the entities in the area that need that. So is UTBB looking at it as just that, and being able to disseminate this information to our counties and cities?
Everybody will have
this
everything.
looking at more of a
Yeah.
marketing type engine that will generate revenue for the university later
Yeah,
down the road?
No, I think this is, everybody will have everything. And so all of the partners should be able to see all the data and to be able to get access to all the data to do their work. Yeah, to be able to do that. That is really what we're trying to do. And so the other value of having the university as the host, basically, of this service is that SAS Analytics heavily discounts their work to educational entities. Dr. Goodnight, who started it, was a professor and, at NC State, and education is his passion. SAS makes a lot of money in insurance companies and financial institutions and all of the analytics that they do around that, so they really heavily discount it to the higher ed institutions. And so this is a very small price to be able to do it than what we would be able to do it if we weren't a higher education institution. The other thing I would say is, the university has the ability to pull data confidentially in, unit record data from all sources, FERPA concerns, federal concerns over student privacy. We have the ability as an educational entity to be able to have MOUs with the other community colleges and with with K-12 to be able to pull that record in, those records in, not for the purposes of understanding what those students are, but to be able to connect them when they go from a K-12 institution into Odessa College and into, we need to be able to track those students over time to be able to understand what are they choosing and what jobs are they getting in and what salaries do they make afterwards.
I have a question. The PSP's contribution, I know when I saw a presentation that, and Tracy indicated that there was a lot of data that they were going to contribute. Is that what this represents?
Yeah, they're paying for the data that they've been paying for. So they've been investing $150,000 every year to pull this economic data in for themselves and their own companies to be able to understand what the situation is. They just don't have the ability to take that data and connect it to everybody else's data and to be able to have it in a dashboard so that they can use it. So they will. They've agreed to continue to pay for the data, the $150,000 that they have been investing in those economic, very specific unit record reports that will allow these models to run.
This agreement, who generated it? Okay, I get, there's something in here that's a little confusing to me. I guess I don't quite understand. In section 4, it talks about qualified expenditures. UTPB covenants agrees to submit ODC paid invoices, paid receipts, and other paid documentation in the form acceptable to ODC for the qualified expenditures in a minimum amount of whatever this $819,000. And then it says in the next provision, it says ODC covenants and agrees to submit reimbursement for qualified expenditures made by UTPB pursuant to this agreement in an amount not to exceed $819,000. So I
Is that
don't.
supposed to be maximum there? I'm wondering.
Yeah, I don't understand.
It probably should be maximum amount.
Yeah,
Section 4.
but the intent is that the exposure for ODC is up to 819,060.
Yeah, that's $398 for the first year and $420
Yeah.
basically for year 2.
So
Okay.
UTPB is making a minimum expenditure of $819.
Yeah, that's the way I read it.
We are making a maximum
Well, yeah, I don't.
Yeah, that's the way I read it too.
Yeah, well, I don't know. That doesn't.
UTB
that doesn't
agrees
make,
to spend at least 819,
well,
and
that doesn't
we're
make
capped
sense
at
to
amount,
me.
we'll spend at 819.
That doesn't
I'm
make
with-
sense to me
I'm with David.
because if they can spend less, they ought to be able to spend less. So I don't think that's right. That doesn't make sense to me.
So should it be more of a matching type grant is what we will
Well-
reimburse, or a reimbursement?
I'm comfortable with an estimate of what the costs are, and then us having a not to exceed amount to fund.
Yeah.
And it's funded by, just no different than a lot of the other grants we've done, it's funded by whatever they produce that says they spent this money.
Yeah,
So
sure.
it'd be a reimbursement.
Yeah,
Yeah, it'd be a
absolutely,
reimbursement
which
of
is,
the
which
Not
is
to exceed the amount they expended.
correct.
Yeah.
And if they can do it cheaper, then it's okay too.
Yeah.
I don't know what, that's gonna be.
Yeah.
The other question I have is, has this been presented yet to MDC?
Yeah, we've had meetings with Sarah Harris and some of their board, 2 members of their board. So they were, but it is on the agenda, I believe, for the May 3rd, May 8th.
I guess, do you have a feel for how receptive MDC is?
I think they're very receptive.
Because I think, that's.
I mean, I never want to be presumptuous, but I think they're excited about the project, and Sarah certainly is, the board members that were there. So I think they really see the value.
I'm a big believer in the collaboration. I
Yeah.
think that makes a lot of sense, that both economic development engines participate in it.
Well, the project doesn't work if they don't participate, so I'm really hoping they do, or I'm going to have to
Well,
go
and
do
I
some
guess-
fundraising somewhere else.
And over here it needs to say
Well, and to David's point on that, Dylan, I fully expect MDC to come alongside, but,
Yes.
you know, to incorporate language in here that we either kind of have a simultaneous closing, if you will, where we're all kind of
Sure.
signing together, or if the funding picture changes, then
Yeah.
we have to kind of start over.
Well,
I understand.
Or I mean, if we agree as a board that we want to participate in this, that it's contingent upon MDC.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
participation.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
I think we'd do
Yeah,
that.
exactly.
Sure. Okay.
Would you go
What are the questions we have for Dr. Woodley before we
see a little demo?
see the demo? Any at this point? We reserve the right to have more questions after the demo.
I will always answer your questions enthusiastically. Okay, well, let's bring the team up. We have Josh. Go ahead, Josh. I'm gonna let you introduce yourself and let me know if you need anything.
Sounds good.
Great.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Josh Scheinberg. I work at SAS Analytics. And today I'm going to show you a little bit of a story and a little bit of some data. So before I start, on y'all's screens that you have in front of you, what do you see? Do you see a dashboard or
Let's see
that?
what you see up there.
Okay, let me see if I can drag this over there. There we go. Look at that. All right. Maximize it. Nice. Okay. Good. All right, so on this first screen, what we're seeing, and as Dr. Woodley mentioned before, this data is actually from 2019, but the idea is kind of the same. So on this first page, I just want to see for West Texas specifically, what is the supply gap, just in general? So we have two numbers up here. One is 8.2K. That is the current supply. And then right below that, we have job postings. So one way to get this data is actually from job postings. And it's kind of nice because we can continuously get this data from different job postings and get the information from inside of it. And what we're seeing is, in general, we have some more supply than job postings. Now, that obviously isn't true for everybody. So let's kind of start drilling into this a little bit more, because this, of course, is just very general. So let's look by different types of working. Now, I know for us over here, it might be kind of hard to see, but I'll do my best. What we're seeing here, those blue bars are job postings, and the orange bars are our current supply. So you might not be surprised that heavy truck and trailer drivers on top, very big gap. A few down, we have a really big gap also in RNs. So just by glancing at this pretty quickly, we can start to see, okay, here's kind of where some gaps are, here's maybe where we're okay, and that can kind of tell us where to go next. Now, before I continue, I could talk about what's on here for hours, and I'm only going to have a few minutes with you, so I'm going to kind of jump around a little bit just to kind of show you the art of the possible about what's going on. We also have this gap analysis. This is showing some similar information. We break it down by educational requirement, and that's kind of going to be across this whole report, as we're able to break it down to different pieces. And right now we're just looking at West Texas there. All right, let me show you a couple more things. So, job demand in general. Now, job demand is comprised of two things. It's comprised of how many people are we going to need in general, but also how many people are going to leave and retire. So we need to model both of those things. And that's what we're seeing here. Those are added up. We could look at any of them specifically. And for anything we choose, let's choose CTE vocational. We were just kind of talking about that a little bit. If we highlight that, we see by far truck drivers. That's on top. Then we can see those other occupations. And this is just kind of some general info for you. If we kind of want to keep digging in, we can look at the highest demand just in general. We see it's hard to see. Oh, there we go. Oil and gas, you know, that's high up there. We can filter it by all these different things, sectors, education requirements. So again, I'm not going to click through everything, but there's a lot of options. And it really gives it so that everybody looking at this can kind of tell a different story to themselves. You know, what are you looking for? What do you need to know? So that they don't have to ask somebody and then eventually get that information back. Okay, I just have two short things to show you. One of which is over here. So we talked a little bit about tracking as well, and that's a really important thing when we're talking about something like this, because it's kind of abstract. You know, what exactly do we do and what impacts do we have for it? So looking up here, we can just start and say, okay, you know, let's look at, we're talking about the university, so we can look at that. and maybe we want to improve enrollment. So this is more specific to the university. All of a sudden, we get these key performance metrics. We get this graph on the right kind of showing, here's what we expect. Then we have even more specific stuff on the bottom left here. What things can we actually do? What impacts do they have? Now, this data, of course, we haven't done these things yet, so this is just kind of placeholders, but it gives a nice view of how things are going. Okay, just last thing I want to show is a bit more specific of that gap analysis. So what we're looking at here is we have all these sectors. All these sectors have subsectors, and all of those subsectors have occupations. So we can drill down into each of those. And let's start here with computer and math, because that's what I like at least. And it's going to refresh, so that is okay. So basically what this is showing as it refreshes here, if I can get that to happen, and that's no problem if not. So really what was going to be looking at, there we go, is there's different degrees, and these degrees kind of have different occupations that you could be in. So this breaks it down by, how many people in Texas are we thinking are going to graduate with this certain degree? What jobs can you do with this certain degree? And we start to see these gaps to where even if we have all of the civil engineers working here, there's still a gap, even if nobody leaves. So that's the kind of stuff that we want to see and that we're trying to get at. So that's really the end of what I want to talk about. I'll bring this back up just in case we have anything else specific. But with that said, any questions from this? Anything else specific that you'd like to see?
So when we look at the gaps, I understand the educational side of it. Sometimes gaps are filled in by kids coming up through school, into college, whatever, technical degree.
Sure.
But, one of the things I know we've talked about on advertising committee a lot at times is, are there places for instance, if we're short in some category, is there any ability to look around the country and say, okay, hey, is there anybody that's got too many of these? Can we go recruit into that area and say, hey, you've got too many of them, we don't have enough, we want you to come check out Odessa?
That's absolutely possible to do. What Dr. Woodley talked a little bit before last time, once we have all the data in one spot and all of this set up, it's really easy to bring in a little bit more data, make a bit different of report, so we can bring in a different state's data. We can bring in all the different states and have all those occupations just to see some general numbers. And yeah, go ahead.
And I would also say, part of what was in the, earlier stages of the model was to be able to understand what is, San Angelo producing? What is Texas Tech in Lubbock producing? Sol Ross, and we could look at data across the whole state. Now, part of what we do know is sometimes it's very difficult to recruit graduates from other institutions when we're not doing here, because many of them or some of them don't want to come and live in West Texas, which is part of the value of Grow Your Own here. But we'll have information from West Texas institutions from which, and that's what PSP is interested in. Their companies, they love UTPB, but listen, they need workers. If we don't have enough, they're going to find workers wherever they need them. And so their ability to understand where are the graduates and what kind of pipeline are they coming in from all of the institutions that, likely they would be able to recruit from here. They'll be looking at that as well. So all of the institutional data, to the extent that we can get it, will be in there. And a lot of those data, correct me if I'm wrong, we can get in even if they, like other institutional data.
Absolutely, yeah, and like I mentioned before, once we have this environment, we can call it, and these types of reports, bringing in that other data, it's really quick. We already have a lot of automation going on in there, so it's a lot less of a lift to kind of bring that marginal rather than, starting from scratch on that.
Is bringing in that other data, like in this example that we're using, and I know this will come in multiple examples, is that under the current cost structure, or is this more of the the opportunities are unlimited of what we can do with your money?
There is a certain amount of dollars in here for data. It goes beyond the 150 that SAS Analytics is doing. I didn't bring it up here. But yes, we have a budget in here for going out and getting new data sources and putting them in. Now, there are a lot of data sources that we can go out and get that we don't have to purchase. And we'll be looking at those as well. For example, if we partner, we talked with Willie Taylor, at the data sources that they do. There are entities here that could use this dashboard that can give us the ability to use their data, pull it in, and then give them a service back so that they can see it. So we'll know over the period of a year, to 2 years, all of the ways that we can connect the data that we think would be most useful. But the project ongoing really has lots of possibilities, purchasing new data, but also, which is the way I like to do it, collaborating with willing partners who are willing to, put their data in the pot, if you will, if they get a benefit back out of it.
Well, and I want to make sure too, the stuff that we've done, that ODC has done with like Golden Shovel and all that. I mean, we've
Absolutely.
got a lot of data that we've collected there. It was interesting, some of it we're just now kind of digging into it, but the gaps that we found when we compared, because Golden Shovel kind of did that, they said, okay, let's look at, help me out here, Christy, Abilene, Lubbock,
Lubbock,
Amarillo.
all of those. They even looked at Las Cruces, New Mexico.
Oh, right.
Just because there were some similarities.
Sure.
Those were some-
But you see some really interesting things happening there where we're just running way far behind
Right.
in labor availability, even from some of the surrounding communities.
Yeah. Well, and I think, any data source that ODC has or any other entity that's willing to partner with us, we'd love to find a way to connect all of that and give it back out in a way that's helpful.
One of the questions that I raised earlier was, how do you confirm the reliability of the data? Because, we're talking about getting it from, all kinds of
Yeah.
different sources. Would you speak to that a little
Talk about
bit?
the data
And
cleaning.
I guess what I'm looking, I'll prejudice the answer. What I'm looking for is the experience that you guys have in ensuring the reliability of the data.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we've been doing this for, I think, 47 years, and bringing data together is kind of where we started and kind of our bread and butter, sparse data sources, bring them together, but then making sure that it's correct. So how we go about it is we start and we track everything. So as soon as any piece of data enters the system, it's going to start being tracked. If you do anything to that data, it's going to be logged in a way that you're able to see actually kind of easily. So we have these different steps to make sure that nothing's happening to the data, but we also have steps before it actually gets into a report to look back and make sure, compare some different things, make sure that everything that we're seeing there is actually correct.
Well, and I think, some data sources are more specific and very specifically accurate, and some are, scraped data, for example, from other sort of sources. So there's a continuum of reliability in the data sources that you use. So the other thing that SAS is very accustomed to doing is making sure that they validate, cross-check those data with other sources that they do have, and where you have a data source that that you're getting information from, even some Burning Glass, for example, or some of these other entities that go out and pull data, then we understand what is very specific. Specifically accurate based on unit record data and what is along that continuum. We use, different levels of data all the time in our decision making. I think the ability to connect and track those data, and more importantly, to use those data over time, really improves the accuracy of it too.
What other questions do we have?
Thank you very much. Thank you for your consideration. We appreciate you very much.
I just had one quick question, sorry. On your schedule here, year 1 and 2, there's a doubling in data and reports cost the second year.
Yeah.
What jumps it up by 100%?
Let me grab that. There's a couple of things in that category.
Yeah.
So, right, and so the, where is the data? Right, so the 150 is the data that we're already getting on the economic data to put into the model. The 150 is going out and trying to get other data sources in there in year 2. So for example, what we want to be able to do is find a way to connect data with all of the educational entities, with all the K-12, there'll be some cost to that, with all the, higher education and economic development areas that we may want to add to. So if we do have to purchase additional data sets, sets to be able to go in there beyond what's already available, which is the 150. That's that extra data opportunity to pull some other data sets in.
Okay, and there's two other items, similar instances. The fourth item, stats and database, it jumps up, 30% on the second year.
Yes, and part of what that is, if you look at the 196 in year one, that is where what we are doing is relying on SaaS consulting to come in here and get the models up and going and to do the programming. Going forward, we're shifting that over to the university to be able to pick up that service and do it in-house. And so it is really a similar, amount of money to be able to do the work, but it's going from consulting to the university, being able to do it in-house.
I see. Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks for your time.
So, we do have a performance agreement in front of us.
Mr. Chairman, if you're going to consider approving it, we're gonna need to strike, it'll be the second whereas and the fourth whereas. Those do not apply to this.
In its
We're talking
entirety?
about property and the second whereas, and then on the fourth whereas, we're talking about, jobs and jobs creation, things like that. I think Tom was gonna speak to that as well.
What's your, I'm sure it's as soon as possible, I was gonna say timeframe on needing this approved. The reason for my question is if we don't take action on this today and to give our attorney time to clean this up a little bit, does that promote a problem?
Well, I think what I would say is, we're going before the Midland Board, as I said before, on May the 9th. I don't know when your next meeting is. And we would love, I don't know if we had the opportunity to review the contract, we would like to review it too.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I think I don't know when your next board meeting is, if we could get it all, completed by, as soon as possible, but that would be great.
I believe May the 9th is the next scheduled board meeting.
That's exactly, it was going to, May the night, we're the second Thursday of each month.
So that's the same as MDC, is it? May 6th, okay, yeah. They'll beat you,
So
though.
that'd be the month.
They're gonna beat you.
That's all right.
It's okay. Thank you.
Okay, that answers that question. What are your thoughts, other than those two?
Well, and we're
Dan?
wanting a rewarding on the qualified expenditures.
I would really like it to be clean when we vote on it and have it ready.
It makes it simpler for everyone.
Yeah, we're wanting a rewording there, and then I think that we need to change this reimbursement not to exceed, needs to be not to exceed whatever it is that they spend.
Okay, any disagreement in us then, putting this off to take any action until next meeting to clean this up? Okay. Are you waving at me? Hello. Hi, Tom, it's good to see you, yeah, come on down.
How y'all doing? We did get this late, and I had talked with legal about the whereases that don't pertain, and we weren't able to get a copy to UTPB, which normally we do that before also. My recommendation to the board would consider, we can probably get this cleaned up in the next few days, certainly by the halfway point of next week at the latest. And then if you want to, especially pending your next conversation here on another project in closed session, you may have to have a special meeting anyways. Certainly, it's always good to get out there in front of Midland. But we can have it cleaned up so y'all can look at a good one, and also we can get it to UTBB in a good timing so that they can also take a look at it.
Let's plan on doing that, and let's just get it cleaned up. Let's get it back over to Dr. Woodley and her team for review, because if they've got changes, need to go back to the attorney, and we may go back and forth for a little bit, and just see how that plans out with a tentative thought of next month's meeting at the latest. And
Okay.
if we do have a special meeting between now and then and everything's ready, we can certainly put this on that as well, because it'll go quick and easy.
We can certainly do that for you.
If we do it at the May 9th meeting, we won't have to do it contingent upon MDC's approval.
This is true. That's a very valid point.
They may on May 6th do it contingent on ODC's approval.
That's okay.
So-
That's good. We don't mind them waiting on us anyway.
There you have it.
So do we just need to table this? Or?
Yeah, let's get a motion to table the,
Make a
any
motion to
action.
table.
Have a motion from Mr. Harry. I have a second from Ms. Holman. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, same sign. Hearing none, motion carries. Thank you. All right. And we're gonna give you guys an opportunity. You mean you don't wanna sit around and hear about our committee and officer reports? Yes, I'll sit right here and wait for you, Dr. Whitley, yes. Thank you, guys. Okay, that brings us to item 7, ODC Committee and Officer Reports. Item A is partnership, and since Mr. Russell was kind enough to go and let me go enjoy my daughter playing some college golf, I'm gonna let you give us an update on the partnership meeting.
We did have a partnership meeting. It was a fairly small group. We had Mr. Beckmeyer and Mr. Thompson were there. Our economic development staff was there, and then Greg Simmons was there. But we did talk about some things and really how to make those meetings more effective than they really seemed to be in the last bit. So a couple things that we have tasked Tom and his staff with is to really do another survey and see when the best time is. We also agreed on a couple of ground rules, I guess you'd call them, to absolutely limit those meetings to 1 hour max, so that we keep it short and pithy, as Bill O'Reilly would say. We keep it moving, and along that line also to actually have we've always kind of had an agenda, but it hasn't been very specific. But to ask everybody that's going to be in attendance there if there's something in particular that they want to speak on, to actually lay that out ahead of time, so that we know what the topics are going to be. We did, kind of the interesting thing that kind of came out of it, and I don't know if anything will ultimately happen with it, but the county talking about where the new library location may be, and that's be where the health department is, but then the comment was made, but we're also gonna need a place to move the health department. And Mr. Beckmeyer was like, we have a place, potentially, because we've got a nicely newly renovated health clinic that the city is not wanting to be in the health business anymore. So hopefully maybe we can make a little connection there. But that's what those meetings are really designed to be about, is to bring those conversations forward and make sure we're not duplicating effort, that we know what resources each one of them has, and those kinds of things. So overall, I think it was a pretty productive meeting, even though we had not a lot of representation there from the other entities. But hopefully we'll be able to do that. Also talked about, does it need to be a lunch meeting, a breakfast meeting, a late afternoon meeting, a whatever meeting. We don't really care. We just want it to be at the best time for everybody that wants to participate. So
I would think that we could change the name of that from partnership to margaritas and mass information.
you'd probably get better.
Probably get better attendance.
Can I change my committee?
To the margaritas and mass information committee. Okay. Well, I'm getting all kinds of volunteers just by changing the
Food and
name.
alcohol always brings out a better crowd. So.
Absolutely. Any questions on the partnership meeting? Okay, thank you, Mr. Russell. So tax incentive?
We didn't meet. I guess I'm thinking we're overdue.
I think you need, you
Who do
should
we ask?
motivate them.
I think,
You ask Renee,
I'll check on that. I don't think
Yeah.
we're overdue yet, but you're probably within the next.
come and do.
I bet we're close.
Yeah, should meet at least once a decade. Okay, and advertising, I know we had a good update from Ms. Calicut. Would you like to add anything, Dr. Kirk? Or?
No, I didn't make it. I was baby.
Christy and her team just continue to do really exceptional work, and they're just constantly driving the ball forward. And so I think with the Golden Shovel report that we'll be able to talk about in detail next month. Just a lot of good work going on there. Like Christy said, started placing some of the ads and some of the new copy, and I think they've come up with some really eye-catching attention-catching things. So we're just continue to see growth across our website and our social platforms, and so all the right things are happening.
Wonderful. Downtown Odessa Grants Design and Review Board, I don't think you guys met, did you, Larry?
No, we haven't had anything this month.
And then, Mr. Beckmeyer, do you have any update by chance on kind of what downtown Odessa is looking like at this second and that board? I'm kind of calling on you. Okay.
Yeah, no, the board, I haven't done up with the board.
It's hard to stand up sometimes. I haven't met with the board myself. I have talked to a couple of them, and I'm like, carry on, let us know what we need to do to help. We are, as we've said all along, we are still very interested in downtown Odessa. Any monies that we gave, we're not asking for back or anything like that. We want to help them move forward.
Do you know if the downtown Odessa board has a meeting coming up anytime
They
soon?
were supposed to have had one the week after the council meeting, but nobody followed up with me. I was going to ask Keith. Anyhow, I was going to ask somebody last night, and it just got into too many conversations around the hot funds, and I didn't get to it. But we support them, but it's really not our business at this point.
I believe they're planning to have a meeting as soon as the agreement with the city expires. So I don't know.
It expires here a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
As far as the facade and infrastructure grants, I would, and we can reach out directly to them or however, I'd like to do a little survey of our whole downtown area of just nothing real complicated, but which properties have already received grants and how many eligible properties may be left, because we've done a bunch. And I'm not sure how many more eligible properties there may be for facade and infrastructure grants, and
I think it's a pretty low number.
Yeah,
at this
I think
point.
it is.
Yeah, that'd be something great for them to do.
Wonderful. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Appreciate you. Thank you. And Compliance Committee. I think they
Next.
met this week.
Tuesday, I had a conflict.
Mr. Robinson? Well, I know we have
Well-
Miss Peggy
You mean
Dean
Miss-
here and,
But
well,
that's gonna,
we're gonna talk about that in executive session,
Yeah,
if,
that's
if,
really the
if
only
if that's
item.
okay. And so if that's the only item, then let's, we can skip with, okay, awesome. So at this point, the board can recess into executive session in compliance with section 551.001 of the Texas Government Code, which we are going to do under section 551.087 in regards to economic negotiations over project logical location.
Then we need a motion to
So
go into
moved.
executive session.
So I was going to ask not only the board, but also Ms. Dean if she would join us as well. And so with that, I would entertain a motion to go into executive.
so moved.
Second.
One from Mr. Boutan, second from Dr. Kurt. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we stand in recess to go into executive. We'll be back. Hearing none, motion carries. We are back in. So if we would, let the record show that we took no action in executive session. And item 10, any citizens' comments on non-agenda items? At this point, again, we are in a public meeting. If we have any comments for non-agenda items? Would the mayor like to make a comment?
Somebody needs to make a motion to.
Moving right along with no citizens' comments. Upcoming dates for ODC board meeting, I think we said April.
May
May
9th.
ninth.
I'm trying to have another meeting in April. Okay,
Can I-
May the 9th. May 9th at 2 p.m. Fantastic. Anybody have a conflict? Is that okay with everyone for now?
That's 1:45 for Melanie, but
1:45 for Melanie?
1:45.
Okay.
Let me look here, hold on.
We'll let David check his schedule.
His,
I can't, I have a conflict on that date.
One more reason to keep that day.
True. Can we move it to the next week? 16? Or,
I can do anything you need.
Mr. Chairman, are you looking at a special date?
Not at this point.
Okay.
Yeah, not at this point.
We talking about a possible meeting between now and then?
We had, but I think after this executive session.
16,
we can
okay.
Get some information back from our attorney.
Six,
Just remember though, if we do have UTPP, we need to approve.
yeah,
You want to do it a week early.
or a
We
week
can
late.
keep that open. If you guys are amenable to that, is if we get all the information back.
are you
That could be
talking
a
about
very
the
short and
second?
sweet
Yeah.
special meeting.
That is my birthday.
Oh, what a great day.
If y'all will
It'll be
bring
great.
cake, I will
Yes.
be here.
Yeah, we can do
What's
that.
that date?
May 2nd is
May
my
the
birthday.
2nd. Okay.
that works for me.
Margarita May. I've got it.
Yes.
I
Margarita May
prefer
2nd.
bourbon.
Bourbon. Got it.
That works for me.
Are we moving to the second? Have we changed it?
Second works for me.
Mr. Russell?
yes, that'd be fine.
Mr. Harry? If the second work for all you guys, we moving up?
If there's cake.
If there's cake.
We will,
And
We
bourbon.
will.
And bourbon.
Mr. Mansky,
And-
can you, put on the expense report, birthday cake made out of bourbon for the May 2nd meeting?
No, it just needs to go well with
Well,
bourbon.
no.
That's not coming from my email.
You don't want the FOIA there.
Okay, so May 2nd, we good? Okay, so we're gonna change that to May 2nd at 2 p.m. for us and 1:45 for Melanie. And with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Motion, Dr. Kirk.
Second.
Second, Mr. Russell. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
We stand adjourned. Thank you so much.
and we'll be ahead of this.